evening, Grand Junction. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm Kelsey Coleman. I'm the Communications and Engagement Manager for the City of Grand Junction. We are very pleased to house our second town hall here at Grand Junction High School. I'd like to first thank Brian Carlson, who is the Director of Theater Arts for Grand Junction High School, and his students who are in the Technical Theater program. They have helped put this together tonight. We couldn't have done this without them. They really are making this possible, so a big thank you to Grand Junction High School. And thank you. And before we begin tonight, I would just like to say thank you and appreciate all of you for coming. This is part of the Meet You There initiative. This has been a big campaign, if you will, directly from City Council. They wanted to get in front of as many people as possible, as often as possible. This is part of the transparency piece of our government, and we're really focused on being accountable and being transparent. So tonight we are going to be taking questions from the audience. Whatever you have, bring it to the table. We have 2 people who are roaming around with microphones, so they will be going around giving you the microphone so you can ask a question, make a comment. This is a town hall, so we ask that you be respectful. We understand that not everybody has the same opinion, and there's beauty in that, and so let's be respectful, keep it short and concise. We want to make sure that we get to all the questions tonight as we can. We only have 2 hours. Before we begin, I think we need to do an introduction, so I will just ask to start with our council members. Introduce yourselves and maybe give a little bit of context of how long you've been with the city. We'll start with, yes.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming. I'm Scott Bile, full-time City Council member at large.
Cody Kennedy. Can you hear me? No, you can. My name is Cody Kennedy. Recently demoted to City Council member for District A. So thankful for the opportunity to serve both as your City Council member for District A and formerly as mayor. It is a lot. I was very glad to hand it off to you.
I'm Laura Lutz. I am the newly appointed mayor. I've been on council just over a year, and I'm also the City Council representative for District D.
I'm Ben Van Dyke, Mayor Pro Tem. You're at-large representative for City Council. Lifelong Grand Junction resident. I've joked a lot tonight about not being orange seats out here to look at. I'm a little disappointed that we've gone blue. This feels more fruited to me than Grand Junction, but really happy to be here with all of you guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Jason Wynn. I am entering my 4th year on council. I have lived in Grand Junction since 2010, and happy to be here. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anna Stout. I'm representing District C. This is my 7th year on the council, and I formerly served as your mayor for 2 years and mayor pro tem for 1. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us this evening.
All right, and then we will, you'll notice if you were at the last town hall, we had City Council, and then we had a couple members of our leadership, but tonight we have a full panel over here. These are our leaders of city staff. They represent various departments, and so we'll go around and introduce each of them.
Thank you.
Can you turn it on? Is it on? Again, be patient and kind with us as we all learn together with our technology here tonight.
There we go. All right, good evening. My name is Mike Bennett, and I am the city manager for the city, and I've been with the city since December of 2014. 24.
Good evening, I'm Kimberly Bullen. I'm the deputy city manager, and I've been with the city for 10 months.
Hello, Jay Valentine, Chief Financial Officer. Been with the city since March of 1999.
Hi, I'm Jeremiah Boyce. I'm the interim city attorney. I have about 12 years as a police officer and 5 years as an attorney.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matt Smith. I'm your police chief, and I've worked for the city since 1999.
Good evening, my name is Pete Harris, and I am the fire chief, and I've been here since February.
Welcome, Pete. Good evening, my name is Tamara Allen. I'm the Community Development Director here with the city. I've been with the city just over 9 years.
Yes, good evening. Thanks everyone for coming. My name is Trent Brawl. I've been with the city for 31 years, but about the last 8 as the Engineering and Transportation Director.
Good evening, Elizabeth Fogarty, Director with Visit Grand Junction. Have been with the city for 8 years. It's nice to see some familiar faces out there. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm Ashley Burrell, the Interim Utilities Director, and I've been with the city for 3 years.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Ritterbush. I'm the Water Services Manager. I've been with the city for 24 years in various capacities with the Water Department.
My name is Randy Coleman. I am Park Operations Superintendent. I've been with the city for 26 years, all of them in parks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jared Timothy. I'm General Services Director, and I just started my 20th year with the city.
And again, this is how it's going to work. You're going to raise your hand. We will call on you, and you'll go ask questions, and our council members will ask. And just to clarify, if a council member can answer a policy question, if there's a question that is more operational, they may pass it to staff, and then staff will answer your question. And then if I could just introduce Cameron Walters, who are Parks and Rec Communications Specialist. He will have one of the microphones tonight. And then we have Johnny McFarland in the back, who is the assistant to the city manager, and he'll have the other microphone. So let's kick it off. Let's get it started. We're really grateful you're here tonight to answer your questions. And so if you could just put a hand up if you have one, and we'll start working our way around the room. All right?
What's happening with the Orchard Mesa pool?
What's happening with the Orchard Mesa pool? Probably a good question.
Well, before we turn it over to Mike, obviously we've been talking about it a lot for years since I first ran for council over 3 years ago. And obviously we care very much about that conversation. We're just at a point in that conversation where there's things that we can and cannot talk about. And we want to be careful of that. All due respect, like this is something we want to opine on, but really can't necessarily because we have some ongoing conversations about it. We can't talk about things that happen inside executive session, outside of executive session. So with that, I would toss it over to unless any other council members have.
I would just say, a lot of us have been working on with the community up there, as you know, and there's a lot of people from the pool group here tonight, and we appreciate that. A lot of us committed during our campaigns to support everything we can do to save the pool and to work with the neighborhood. So that's what we're doing, and more to come soon.
Could you repeat that question? I didn't hear
What's going on?
The question was just regarding an update on the Orchard Mesa pool situation. Dead mic.
Maybe you can toss the other microphone down by.
Just takes a little bit. All right, for those of did everybody hear the question, or do we need to repeat that again? I'll repeat it. So the question was, what is going on with the Orchard Mesa pool? For those of you that I imagine most are aware, but if you're not aware, it's a long-term partnership between District 51 and Mesa County and the city of Grand Junction. And the city of Grand Junction has operated the pool all those years, but the pool and the land are owned by District 51, and Mesa County had written a check a couple years ago to the district for about $800,000 to say, here's funding, and we are now out of the pool business. And the District 51, their default would be to demolish the pool at the end of the year if there was not a solution found, and the time frame was extended because the city of Grand Junction agreed to continue operating the pool at the expense of the city for the last year or more. I think it's been more, maybe close to 2 by the end of this year, and to give time to look into solutions. And as the council members already mentioned, I won't repeat that, but the next step that has been public direction from the City Council is to consider a survey question in our, or two or more, in our upcoming community survey that we are conducting this summer about how our residents feel about the potential of a ballot question, and those questions will be discussed in public workshops coming up as we are working through the draft of the community survey.
Olivia, perfect, right over there.
Hi, yeah, my question has to do with what your base as well. The condition of being a half road, it's my understanding that the city has been extended out to 30 road, and I drive being a half road on a daily basis. It's like driving a Jeep trail. A whole bunch of new subdivisions have been approved out there, and they keep digging up being a half road to access the utilities, and then they just patchwork it. Never any meaningful improvements. And when you drive down being a half, plus I know you're not the county, but the county several years ago approved 800, not just gravel trucks, semi-sized gravel trucks, to travel up and down being a half road on a daily basis. And the road is a mess. It's like driving a Jeep trail. You ride down that road doing the speed limit and you're bumping up and down, your head's hitting your roof, you're swerving around potholes, you're swerving around everything. And I just want to know, are there any plans to do improvements on being a half road? I kind of feel like we're the forgotten children out there.
Well, thank you for the question. We can have our Engineering and Transportation Director, Trent Pearl, answer that one.
Yeah, so on being a half road east of 29, as you mentioned, we do have a number of subdivisions that have recently gone in there, but back in 2019, we had a bond initiative that was passed that provided the funding that will allow for us to do the street reconstruction on that. We currently have that designed and finalizing the right-of-way acquisition for curb, gutter, sidewalk, bike lanes, street lights, and all of that to improve that corridor from, again, 29 Road out to 29 3/4, which gets us to the intersection with Chipeta
Golf Course.
Right, no, east of Chipeta Golf Course. And so that'll be a full street reconstruction where we take out, the asphalt and take out all the subgrade. And we're trying to get all the utility companies in there to upgrade their facilities, similar to water and the city of Grand Junction sewer and so forth, and getting all the storm drain infrastructure in there get all that infrastructure brought up to grade before we put down the asphalt surface.
Well, because it seems to me that all these subdivisions get approved, but then no plans for maintaining or improving infrastructure are ever made. And that should be part of the package.
So the question was that all these subdivisions get approved, and then all the roads leading to the subdivisions are never upgraded. And I think that's case in point where we are upgrading that. And D&a-half Road in between 29. I know you're referencing B&a-half Road, and so that project happens next year. And similarly, D&a-half Road is under construction this year from 29 1/4 Road over to 30 Road. Both of those projects benefit elementary schools in the area, and that's how they were prioritized over a lot of other sections of road that we have here in the city that are leading those type of improvements. But those were prioritized to help get kids within a mile of those elementary schools be able to walk to school.
So there are plans for improvements in the works for next year, is what you're telling me?
So on B&a-half Road from 29 Road over to 29 3/4 Road, that'll be under construction next year.
Okay. And then, do you coordinate with the county at all? Because I know that the city limits only go so far, and then the rest of it is county, and the whole road, all the way down to 32, is a mess.
So the question was whether or not the city coordinates with the county, and yes, we coordinate very closely with them on that, on many projects throughout the county, where jurisdictions overlap. On that particular one, I'm not sure what their plan is as far as street maintenance east of that 29 3/4 Road, but we're trying to get out to where all the major subdivisions are, through there. And yes, we know that the Parkinson gravel pit there to the east has definitely put some wear and tear on the roads there.
They do a lot of road damage. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then just if you do have some follow-up questions, if you could just make sure to grab the microphone so the rest of the audience can hear the questions, that would be great. Looks like we have one over here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here on a busy weeknight. So this turnout, this full house of our elected officials and employees of the city is just so encouraging and inspiring for residents. So thank you for making time for being here. I would like to just get a quick update on what's going on downtown. So lots of construction, it's exciting, train station, everything. And I'm curious if there's any update on the 2nd Street promenade, if there's still going to be a promenade one day, and also with the terminal project, kind of the timeline, and then just everything that's going on in downtown.
So I'll tackle the first 3 or 4 of those, and then I'll let Tamara tackle the last one there with the terminal. But yeah, so CDOT continues the work on improving the I-70B corridor. They started back in 2008 out there at 24 Road, and working through segment by segment down through the corridor. The segment that they're working on right now is in between about 3.5 and about 6.5, and we're working on final design with them to do the next section over from 6.5 east. They should be pretty well wrapped up with that by the end of this year on the I-70B corridor itself. In regards to 2nd Street, CDOT improved 2nd Street in between Ute and Pitkin as part of the recent work as they came around the corner there by the depot on Ute and Pitkin. They improved 2nd Street there. We'll be improving 2nd Street further to the north up to Colorado and eliminate the old washboards, which are caused by the old railroad ties that are decomposing underneath that section of asphalt. So that will happen next year as well. But the mobility hub that is proposed to the east of 2nd Street and between Ute and Pitkin, that will be under construction here late this year, early next year. CDOT is leading that construction effort as well, and then we'll turn the facility over to Mesa County instead of for GDT, Grand Valley Transit, and then regional buses that CDOT runs with bus stand and snow stand will also operate out of the same facility. I'll let Tamara cover the terminal.
Excellent. Thanks for the question with regard to the terminal. So the terminal is a 106-unit development that is actually being coordinated by the Downtown Development Authority, or the DDA. It's in partnership with a group called Headwaters Housing. So I say that in the essence that it's not ours per se, but we certainly have been heavily involved in that. What I can share with the high degree of Definity is that they have received full entitlements for the project, meaning that they've been through their site plan and been reviewed through my department for compliance with our city codes. There's certainly, if you've been out on there coordinating with CDOT and the I-70B work in that corridor and doing some pre-construction work right now on utilities, I do believe that they've actually pulled their demolition permit to pull down the old terminal and Greyhound bus facility and anticipate pulling building permits here later this summer. So we're excited to see that project come to fruition and come out of the ground. The city has invested through incentive as well as supporting a number of their grants on that project. So excited about that, and certainly interested to see the housing development come to fruition at the location.
Great. Any other questions? We have over here, let's do the blue shirt. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate you all being here. I've got a couple of easy ones, I think. They're easy, should be done. I think most of us could agree that 12th Street coming into the city of Grand Junction off of Horizon Drive is a main thoroughfare for the city of Grand Junction. Don't know if any of you have driven that as of late, but there's some real simple projects there, because there's some medians in between the 2 lanes of traffic, one going south, one going that could really use some improvement. The trees, there's several trees that are missing entirely. They've been missing for about the last 16 years. And full disclosure, I work at Primary Care Partners, and we're the facility off to the east side of that. And we actually water for the city. Glad to do it because it's a nice amenity to have those trees in the middle. But some of those trees could use some pruning pretty badly. Those could be replaced. So if it would be somewhere in the city budget to where you could have somebody come out to prune some of those trees and or replace the missing ones, I think it would behoove the city as far as main entrance into the city of Grand Junction and really improve things. So that's easy question number one. Number two may be a little more complicated. And Cody and I have had some dialogue for the past year. Cody, one of the things I'd like to say, and I just don't mean to be rude, but when people email, get back to them. It's incumbent upon all of you as elected officials to respond if somebody is being reasonable and not being snarky and they're not being name-calling, they're just asking a question, to respond. And if you don't have an answer, we don't have an answer at this time. We're working on it. But get back to somebody. So the question I have is on I-70 from Horizon Drive down to, say, 24 Road. It's a pretty residential corridor through there. Just last week, there was a pretty horrific accident. I think the fire department was involved in. Trent's shaking his head, yeah. There was a rollover and a car came onto incoming traffic. And it's not the first accident during that section of road on I-70. I understand that's a federal highway, but I'm hoping that the city of Grand Junction has some relationship, not sure if it's through our congressman or who it might be, to say, what can we do? They have reduced the speed limit in there, but I don't think it's enforced significantly. And part of the problem I have, the trucks coming through there, the semi-trucks, constant engine brakes. Almost every community that I'm familiar with, whether you come to drive through the city of Denver on I-25 or I-70, they've got engine brake signs up. Diesel truck drivers, no engine brakes allowed. Doesn't seem like a terribly difficult thing. My mother and family live off of Patterson Road between 1st Street and 25 and a half Road. I was talking to my brother yesterday, the diesel trucks traveling back and forth on Patterson are now engine brakes. Seems like a fairly easy thing. If there's not something in place, that one's at least within the city of Grand Junction. This is out there within city limits. I would urge you to at least look into it and see what could be done. They seem like things that could benefit all of our community. They're not a left, they're not a right. They're just positive things for our community. So I would ask that you consider those, and if you can, try to do something. Thank you very much for being here, and I appreciate you taking time for the question.
Okay, thank you for the question. And just a quick yes or no, remind me, are you the former CDOT employee that lives with the property that backs up to I-70?
I am not. He's a neighbor.
Okay, I've had several conversations about this. I thought it was I thought maybe you were that person. I've not only exchanged lots of emails on this topic, but I've also, I have coffees. It used to be twice a week. Now that was twice a month more recently, where I'm very accessible to the public. And you're right, I don't respond to every email. Sometimes we get, especially in the mayor's seat, a lot every day. I do try to be responsive, but I don't respond to every email. So yes, absolutely, that's on me. It's not an excuse. It's just stating the facts. You're not wrong with that. But as far as the engine braking goes, especially in that stretch, when you think about like from Horizon Drive all the way through to like the 24 Road, that corridor, we do have a lot of residences that back up through there. I did, I'm going to current interim city attorney, but I had that conversation with our previous city attorney, and I also put that forward to staff. So it is one thing where we can't, as council, necessarily say, hey, we're going to change that particular piece. I'm certainly open to that conversation. But as far as you had a couple other pieces in there, talk about watering trees and caring for the trees, we have an amazing forestry department that cares very much about that and are responsive. And if you do email me again, I will forward that to our forestry department if there's particular trees that haven't been replaced or are not being watered correctly. Again, operations, that's not something that council necessarily does. We do care very much about our tree canopy within our community, and that's an important point. As far as speed limits, I know that's very important, and Trent Crawl is an expert in that department as far as how those decisions are made. Everything from traffic timing to how fast vehicles move through certain corridors, and that again is an operational question, but an important one as far as livability. So I guess unless any other council member has a comment on that, I pitch it back to staff.
So in regards to the trees on 12th Street, Trent's done a fabulous job of being responsive to us on those trees on 12th Street. We're happy to water them. I've got maintenance people that take care of them. Very, very happy to water. We weed the area because it does get full of weeds. I send my maintenance people out because it looks better for the community. It looks better for our operation. Glad to do it, not complaining. Would love to continue to do it. But it would make, I don't think you guys want to see us out there planting trees in the median. I'd like to, but I don't think anybody would like that. There's an opportunity to put at least 3 or 4 trees in, and there's an opportunity to do some pruning on those trees. So last year, I know I had Tom Ziola, who used to be an employee with the city of Grand Junction, fabulous arborist. He came out and was able to work with the city of Grand Junction on pruning the trees along the east side between the curb and the sidewalk. Those trees look beautiful today. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. The ones in the medians are the ones needing some attention at this point. So, Trent, I appreciate everything you do for us. I hate to be a bother. I hope that I don't send too many emails, and I really try not to bug you, except for some of the things that need attention. But any influence you could have on trying to get a no engine brake along with and I don't know if that's a Jeff Hurd question, but maybe the city manager would have an idea on that, but it certainly makes sense. There's only going to be more building when you look at that area out there. There's a whole stretch of land between 12th Street and 1st Street on the north side of I-70 that's vacant. That's going to be houses within a few years. It's going to be a much more complicated area.
Yeah, we can answer a couple of your questions, and if we need to get some information, we can collect your information and get back to you. But if Chief Smith, if you could speak to the brakes question, and then I don't know if Randy or Trent, if you have anything to add with the trees. If not, we can get information, but maybe we'll start with Chief Smith and then go to Randy.
So the engine brakes, sometimes they are called Jake brakes. They're outlawed, it's illegal. We enforce it on I-70 and on Patterson. It's just we have to be there when it's happening. So we do go out and look for those. We have 4 traffic officers that ride the motorcycles, and that's all they do is traffic enforcement and investigate accidents. And so they do go out routinely and try to stop the tractor trailers if they're using their Jake brakes.
Thank you, appreciate that. Does that include I-70?
Yes.
I don't really see GJPD out on I-70. Sometimes I see Mason County Sheriff's Department and the State Patrol, but I rarely see GJPD on I-70.
Yeah, we have I-70. There are sections of I-70 that are within the city limits between Horizon and 24, 23 Road, but it's patchworked. However, we do work I-70, but most of our enforcement actions are within the city limits because that's where we have most of our accidents and most of our traffic. So we do go up on the interstate, and then once a month we do surge operations where we do a combined traffic enforcement effort. And we work with CSP and the Sheriff's Office and Fruta and Palisade, and we get together and work different areas where we can all kind of join forces, and I-70 is one of those locations that we will work. You don't see us up there as often, just because that's not where the volume is. We have so much traffic within the city and our limited resources, and so we try to focus where most of our accidents are and most of our traffic complaint areas, but we do get up on I-70 Granted, not enough, not as much as we would like to, but a lot of that is driven by the calls for service.
Do you feel signage would be a benefit?
I haven't been up there in a while. I'm not sure if there's signage for the engine brakes. Trent can probably answer that for me. But it is illegal. So two things in regards to some of the concerns that Mr. Baughman raised. And one is I-70 and the speed limit that's up there. We work very closely with, after a couple of very catastrophic accidents that had happened on the curve. Worked very closely with CDOT here about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and getting the speed limit reduced. We wanted it to 65, and they said they couldn't reduce it any more than 70. So that's what it was posted. Speed feedback signs that we have right after the curve as you head westbound. They're past the Verizon exit we're putting as part of that, as well as the median protection that was put in there was also part of that effort where we were pushing CDOT hard to do that. In regards to the J brakes and the signage that we're allowed to put in there, we can put them in on the ramps as you're coming down into Horizon Drive, and we can put them in at the city limits like out on Highway 50 and on Highway 50 Hill as you're coming in off of Orchard Mesa to downtown. We are not allowed to put any signs directly on I-70 itself. The ramps are okay, but CDOT will not allow us to do that. So that's something that needs to be worked out with CDOT themselves.
Would that be CDOT or would that be federal?
There would be, so CDOT operates the interstate system on behalf of Federal Highway Administration. So
thank you for that clarification.
In regards to the trees themselves, I think that's just a matter of working with parks on making sure that there's water established out there, or still is water out there on the medians themselves. And anyway, I think with you bringing that to our attention, that parks will take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. We're gonna keep moving. We got a lot of hands up. Looks like we have a gentleman over here who has a question.
Hi, my name is Wyatt, and I'm 10 years old. I'm wondering, why can't we see the stars? Well, when we go camping, we can see millions of stars, even the Milky Way. But in town, we just see an orange glow, which is pretty disappointing because most kids my age haven't even seen stars. I realized that when my dad told me. But I think the cause of that is because too many bright lights are pointing the wrong way, up. So what do you think GJ could do to fix it?
It's a great question.
Did you say your name's Wyatt? All right, thank you, Wyatt, for the question. Our Trent is just on the spot for so many questions tonight. But there are some things. There's policy level, and then there's some of the changes that have been made over time when it comes to our code.
So yeah, Wyatt, that's been a concern for the community for quite some time, and we've got ordinances that were put in place probably 25, 30 years ago when our standard transition from what you typically see with high pressure sodium bulbs that hang down and really light not only down but also to the side and can come up as well. And so we have now the newer LED lights, or what we call 100% cutoff. And so they are cut off there and only shine down and help prevent that glow from happening. The problem is the city has 8,700 street lights, and not all of them have been converted to LED just yet. Out on the Redlands, we do work with those communities, especially up adjacent, like outside, west and south of South Camp Road. For many years, most of those subdivisions don't have street lights in them due to some dark sky parameters that are provided for those subdivisions when they were constructed, to, again, not provide any light pollution up against the monument itself, and we've had other requests out there in the roads since then. But yeah, all the new lighting that we have going in should be, like I said, 100% cut off and only focused down. But it's really important as we urbanize that many of the intersections themselves are lit, and in between the intersections, maybe not quite as important, but definitely the intersections. It's important so that everyone in a car can see other cars and see pedestrians and so forth. Anything else to add? Okay. All right.
Appreciate you bringing that up, Wyatt. In the yellow over here.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Dickey. I'm a property manager here in town. I have about 200 doors, and I'm wondering when we're going to start the conversation on water restrictions.
That is a great question, and obviously one that many are interested in right now. I will speak a little bit to it, and then Ashley Furl can answer some more details. One of the unique dynamics of this area is there are many different water providers, and each water provider has different levels of storage. So for instance, this year, even though it is obviously an extreme drought, we're in some very tough conditions that are rare for us to be in. The city's reservoirs for drinking water are full. Obviously, the snow melt and runoff is not like it typically is in other years. But then you get into some of the canal companies that don't have enough storage to get through the year. And then we work, our residents in Grand Junction receive drinking water through either the city or through Ute Water, and in some areas, potentially Clifton. And so those are 3 different drinking water sources that cover the group. So we have what's called the drip system, where we work in concert to provide education on measures that people can voluntarily take. But we haven't reached the point at which the city's water system would require restrictions, but we are educating and getting more and more messaging out about ways people can voluntarily restrict. And then Ashley, if you want to add anything that I missed or correct anything I said wrong, feel free.
So it has to get bad enough in order to have a conversation? Because we should have had the conversation last year. It's bad.
Yes, ma'am. So the city's been thinking about this and working with our partners, Ute Water and Clifton, for many, many years. Back in 2002, there was a really bad regional drought, and that's when the entities got together and formed the drought response plan. And we've been working on it ever since and updating it ever since. So the 3 entities coordinate very closely. We meet monthly, and we meet more often if necessary. And we have implemented more frequent meetings to coordinate closely during this time. As Mike mentioned, you know, as for the city's water system, our storage is full. We've been thinking about this and planning for this for a very long time. For the last 8 years, we've spent over $40 million, you know, solidifying our pipelines and our water lines and making sure that we're closing up leaks. You know, so our reservoirs are full, and we're prepared for what we expect to be the anticipated demand within the city's water system. And if conditions change, then we'll be prepared to react to that, and we'll certainly communicate that to our citizens.
And what about irrigation water? Domestically, we're good, but what about the water that comes from the river that's not there because we haven't had snow in 2 years?
And she's asking about irrigation water and water from the Colorado River for those who aren't able to hear her.
Yeah, so that's a great question. You know, we can't necessarily speak for the irrigation companies. The city in the region of Grand Junction is served by 6 different irrigation companies, and they all have different water rights and different situations, different infrastructure that pulls water and stores water and distributes water all across the city, different water users, agricultural users, HOAs, domestic users, but within the city's water system, a lot of our users don't have irrigation water available. And so when irrigation or if irrigation water becomes unavailable within the city's water system, we don't expect that we would see a large spike of people switching to using domestic water to water outdoors versus using irrigation water within the city's water system, because we already don't have a lot of irrigation water available to our users.
It's my understanding domestic water prices are going to go up because of the lack of water.
If we had to implement drought rates, then we would give notice for that and council would have to approve that. At this time, we don't think that we would need to do that.
How much notice?
At least one council meeting notice, potentially more. We don't believe that we'll need to do that though. Mark, do you want to?
Yeah, let's just go back to kind of how we got here. Why are our city reservoirs full? And I think a big driver here is the city does in this coming year, or no, currently, the city invests $300,000 annually in a water conservation program. We have a water conservation specialist, an intern. We have some other people who work in customer service to kind of help manage some of the programs that we have. We offer a turf rebate program, toilet rebates, and probably one of the biggest things that we've done is we went to what's called AMI, and that allows customer water usage to be viewed in real time. And so this AMI system every day generates a report on if there's any abnormal usage, like did anyone's water not shut off overnight? Did anyone's water spike up real high? An example from last week is a report showed one of our customers had water leaking at 171 gallons a minute. So we just gave a call. They got the leak fixed that day. We have a policy where if you fix a leak, we will credit you that amount. Under the old way, that water would have ran until a bill was generated. And so, at least 4 weeks later, that customer said, man, I got a $6,000 bill, what's going on? Then they would have called. And so just examples like that have we've kind of stacked that to where this program it's saved over 11 million gallons since we've implemented it. And also, just in the last 3 years since we put this water conservation program in, the per capita consumption's gone down 11%, which is really something to be proud of, I think. Parks has done an awesome job in helping reducing our demands too. So that's kind of what's helped us to, even in spite of a dry year, be in a good position. And so we just don't feel like, honestly, to really, if we were really in a dire situation, we would need to increase water rates, put in drought rates. And actually last December, council adopted these drought rates. They go up substantially. So we just, at this point in time, it doesn't seem necessary to put such a punitive water rate on people when our reservoirs aren't full.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question in relation to her, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but in relation to her question about the water, and I've been here since 1993.
Can we get a microphone on her real quick? Thank you. We're going to stay on
in relation
because it is an
to the
important
water
topic.
problem. I've been here since 1993, so as you know, I've seen a significant amount of progress and development in the valley. I lived here when you could get from Fruita to Palisade in 5 minutes. But has any thought been given to maybe we need to put the brakes on all the progress and development a little bit until Colorado starts seeing a little more snow?
So, I'll chime in there, but I also want to make space before we answer your question. I think there was a question up here, and I think Jason was trying to get in to answer that too.
I did want to just chime in about the water rate discussion, because I think it's important that we acknowledge kind of what council has done in the past couple of years to kind of incentivize conservation. Basically, the way the rates are structured, even in non-drought times, are like kind of below a certain threshold, you have like the lowest rate, and then as you kind of progress higher in your usage, the rate goes up. So kind of that, once you become like a higher water user, the water becomes more and more expensive. So I think it kind of promotes conservation. I think that's important to recognize, and something that I would be open as a council member to kind of adopting more kind of aggressive rates on those higher levels of water usage as the drought kind of progresses.
And the microphones are a little echoey up here, so I couldn't quite hear all that we got from staff, but there's a lot of great answers down there. I have heard the number that we have almost 2 years, I think it's 1.75 years worth of water within our reservoir. That doesn't negate the fact that we have a drought going on right now, and we aren't paying attention to that. But I think it speaks to that comment you made, where we should have been thinking about this last year, year before, and staff had commented, like, we've been thinking about this, for, like, we've been working on this specifically for 8 years. And I just want to call out that our staff, long before we were up here, maybe not Councilmember Stout, but most of us were up here, city staff has been forward thinking about this. We live in a desert, and I think they've done a good job in that. They're paying attention to the amount of water they're putting down within our parks. I was covering a forestry board meeting here recently and listening to our chief forester talk about making sure we're maintaining our canopy, our tree canopy, and keeping tree health up. At the same time, how can we find balance and not apply as much water in other areas? So a lot of thoughtful work in that space.
And,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll just add, as the council liaison of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, we are also working on a number of conversions for some of our park space to ensure that we're being as water conscious as possible with some of those parks. So for example, Lilac Park right now is undergoing or has undergone the conversion to native grasses. So that's something this is really, the water question is one that permeates many departments, and it's not just our water department that's looking at this, Parks is looking at this, our infrastructure teams are working on this. Council has approved, I think I might have been the only one on council, but we approved a turf conversion program for residents. So it's something that certainly, it is alarming. If you were paying attention to our last council meeting, we adopted a total firework ban because of the drought. So we're very conscious of what's happening and making sure that we're taking measures to keep our community both resilient and safe, and to not tap resources that we don't need to tap in our both water and our first responders having to respond to firework-induced fires. The other thing that I do just want to reiterate here is that understanding where our water sources come from is really important in this conversation, because we are not reliant, the city of Grand Junction's water supply is not reliant on the Colorado River. We also don't control the irrigation districts. Those are actually separate government entities that operate with their own boards of directors, elected boards of directors, in fact, and policies. So we all work together in this valley. We understand that we're an ecosystem when it comes to our water. We have redundancies built into Ute, Clifton, City of Grand Junction to ensure that we're all able to support each other in the worst case scenarios. But we have done a lot of work over the last many years. I think every single year I've been on council, there's been a conversation about an additional measure that takes care of our long-term water supply.
Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I just throw one thing in there?
Yes.
You know, I mean, there's been a lot of water informational meetings for the region here in Grand Junction. And we're all part of the Colorado River Basin Water Authority, I think it's called. And you can subscribe to news updates on there, which covers the whole Colorado River. But I think it's time too for Mesa County to have a website, a common website, because there's a lot of utilities that do residential, there's irrigation water, there's other water issues, and a common site for people to refer to, I think would really help a lot. So I think given the year, given what's going on, it's maybe time to do that.
Any other comments from council?
Yeah, I just really quickly want to call out as well the incredible forethought that our forefathers had in Grand Junction when this community was founded. At one point, they thought that this would be a limitless supply of water that we had up on the Grand Basin, which is really incredible that we do even still have 2 years worth of supply. Just by, I think it's 15,000 acres of property up on the Grand Mesa that have been purchased to acquire those water rights over the years. So it's been really intentional, very intentional, that we've set ourselves up in a great place for water moving forward, and we don't end up in a position where we are in drastic restrictions, and that might be a conversation that we're going to have. I mean, if we're in the same position next year, we're going to have some serious conversations amongst council. But I am very thankful for our forefathers for putting us in the position that we are today.
I would just add that I'm always impressed with the experts in our utilities department for the work that we are often working on is like 2050 and beyond. I mean, really looking far ahead for storage and water rights and infrastructure. So we are always staying well ahead of the level of development within the area that we have control over. So I want to highlight them and their awesome work for that.
If there's no other comments, we'll head back to questions. On the far, oh, right here.
Okay, I have a lot of questions and comments. I'm so sorry. Okay, number one, I benefited from the city calling me when my mom's house had a leak and when my own house had a leak, so I greatly appreciate that proactive water conservation and just like on a consumer basis, like the transparency, that just makes like a big difference for people, especially in a time when, you know, an increase in utility bills could like really make or break someone. So thank you for initiating that. And that does also make me feel better about the water situation, because I think seeing no snow and just a little bit of rain in the last few months is really, it's scary, especially in an ag surrounded area. So thank you for the information on the water. Just really quick, is it possible for these town halls, I know that like it's a lot of people's schedules to coordinate, but next spring, if it could just not be during like graduation ceremony, just so that more people, I know it's not gonna save everybody's schedules, but just to include those individuals. There's probably a lot of people at those ceremonies tonight, and I would be sad if somebody missed, you know, this because of that, and vice versa, but that's very minor. If we could have town halls at least quarterly, that would be lovely. And then I was just wondering if it's possible, because I feel like there's so many new people getting engaged with local government. If there could be part of a website update is like how the mayor is picked. I didn't even know that you only get to be mayor for 1 year and then it's like the process is done over again. So I just think that that would be really special to have information just for people that continue to start getting engaged, because you're going to get more and more people that are learning about that process. So part of that, like transparency, just having like informational processes about that situation, because I was just shocked. I was like, oh, he's not the mayor anymore. So, and then I was just wondering how Councilmember Ballard is doing. I know that he was deployed about 6 weeks ago. I just wanted to see if there was like an update on how he's doing, or how his constituents are being, like how their questions are being answered, how his committee assignments are being addressed. If we could just have an update on that. And then my last, sorry, I'm all over the place.
We can even pause and have them answer that one, and then you can, answer the next, or ask the next one.
And I'll jump in there, and thanks for your questions on like the transparency and the transitions, and that is something that we can do through the city to like we abide by the city charter, right? And we select a mayor once per year, and you can be the same person twice in a row, as Councilmember Scott pointed out. But yes, those are things that sometimes people are confused and maybe a little angry, like, hey, I want to say this. What the heck? So yeah, that's important for that engagement piece. Regarding Councilmember Ballard, had a great conversation with him recently. He asked specifically, I'm not talking about like location or kind of where he is at in the process, but we talked policy, we talked about upcoming events, we talked about his committees. I happened to cover a forestry committee meeting for him recently. We are reallocating once per year in this upcoming workshop. So after a new mayor is selected, that first workshop after that, we reallocate our various boards and committees, and I think we have like 17 now. And so during that time, we'll just reallocate those. So we'll pick up as council, we'll distribute those amongst us to make sure that those are attended. And some of those committees take a lot more time, some take a lot less time. Some people have more time available to them based on their work schedule than others. So maybe certain members take on more committees or less, or they're interested in one specific topic. So you asked a lot of things. I'm probably missing something, but you asked about constituency. I will say that while we are all elected by district, right, except for 2 at-large seats, we all represent the entire city, right? So I can answer your questions, whether you live in, the north part of town, the south, or the east, or west, right? In any one of our districts, or any other council member can engage in that as well. And we don't only advocate for those areas, we do as the city. So, and the fact that Robert Ballard's been present for not only the workshops, but also the council meetings, and I assume he'll continue to be so, and responsive to emails, even though I was certainly called out on not being as responsive to some emails as I could have been. I think that's, even though I do a lot of coffees and meet with people one-on-one, I think a lot of council members do just respond to emails and engage that way and attend meetings. So being like literally physically present, I think he's so far managing that pretty well.
And I just wanted to follow up on the appointment of the mayor. So our mayor is the president of our council. So it's really like any other board. The mayor doesn't have any additional power. They're just a regular member of council that just leads the meetings and is able to sign things. But that's why we don't have elections, because we have a different form of government where we're a board, and so the mayor is really just the person appointed as the president of the board. So it's a little bit different than when you see, like in New York City, when you see the mayor. I mean, it's a full-time job. They have a job that they're doing, versus what we do is we're all equal in our say. So there's no, just because someone's appointed mayor doesn't mean that they have any more voice than any other person on council. Just from a civics perspective,
We'll get your mic turned on here.
we good? From a civics perspective, I think this is an interesting thing. This is not directly a City of Grand Junction issue, but it's important to understand our state and our local government throughout our state, our system. We are a council manager form of government. There are 271 at last count. We just had a city unincorporate or become not a city well in the east part of the state. We have about 271 municipalities in the state of Colorado. Only 3 of them are what's called a strong mayor, or the mayor system of government, where the mayor is the executive of the city. The rest of those municipalities are all a city manager or town administrator form of government, where they're set up very similar to Grand Junction. Some have direct elect mayors, but those mayors are not what we would consider strong mayors. So it's an important thing to understand about the way that Colorado works in a number of states across the country, and that's why Mike and Kimberly are members of ICMA, which is the International City and County Managers Association, because this is a professionalized job. To be the CEO of a city, essentially, it requires a lot of knowledge, as you can hear, just from the depth of expertise on this bench up here. So it's an important thing to understand about the way that our city operates in the context of the whole state.
And I would add just a couple things to your comments. One is a great way for everybody to stay up to date on things that are occurring is our city update. So if you go to gjcity.org, under the City Council page, there's a tab for City Update, and we put that out twice a month. And it has a wealth of information on just current operational projects and things that are going on. Also, next year, we have a goal of starting what's called a Citizens Academy to go through a little bit more of diving deep and have a class of people that kind of come through each year, learn about departments, learn about the operations, learn about the form of government, have a night with the City Council, with all of our departments here, and some tours of city facilities. So that'll be something we're looking to add in. Part of the Meet You There campaign that the City Council initiated not only has the town halls, but smaller events where with individual council members to come and ask questions and engage. And then similarly with me as a city manager, often with some guests of directors or other partner agencies in the community. About once a month I have one of those events as well. But I think you're right on with a lot of our goals, and how do we continue to reach out and continue to educate and share that information that is of interest of the community. So thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you. Yeah, the academy piece will be really interesting, and I hope that if we could add some sort of connection to high school students to get them connected. I know that, we can't make teenagers do everything, but that would really help, I think, bring that information to the youth too. Okay, my last question is super personal. I request that we, and I've asked this a couple times already, but I would like a outdoor track, like Stoker Stadium, put next to the new rec center. I feel like there are so many young families that would really enjoy using the outdoor track with their children and getting them educated on track and field. And I know that Stoker Stadium is available during the normal times, but with the college football team beginning to utilize that a little bit more, they're going to be using it during off season. They're going to be, running sprints. They're going to be doing those workouts as well as like utilizing that stadium a little bit more, and that's fine. But I think that it would be so important to add a track for community use as well. I know that CMU and the revenue that provides to the city and how we coexist is very important, and that relationship is so important. But I think that having a space for the community to grow and to prosper is so important as well. I went to CMU, I graduated in 2016, and I stayed here because I see a community possible in Grand Junction. But if we keep just putting the priority of the college, that's going to take away from the people that want to stay here and raise a family. So I would like a track. I know it's going to be $1 million. If we could add that to the summer survey about the Orchard Mesa pool, if we could add questions about having an outdoor track, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. One of the beautiful things about the new Community Recreation Center at Matchett Park is all that vacant land around that Matchett Park serves. And so we have so much opportunity to grow into it. It'll all be about funding and priorities, and we have kind of a master plan of Matchett Park and a number of needs throughout the community, but that's definitely good feedback for us. We will, in the meantime, CMU does have to post the hours of the when it's open to the public at Stoker Stadium, when the track is open there. And we have a lot of needs that we'd love to fulfill with various field space and many different things throughout. In the meantime as well, at Matchett Park, we're definitely preserving, it's different than a track, so not answering that question, but in the meantime, we're continuing with the There's a lot of walking trails out there that many use, and so we have a plan that's built into that long-term plan, as well as creating more of those spaces. But you're right that that's an area where we have a lot of opportunity and a lot of different ideas, and depending on priorities and funding, we'll continue to be able to build into. And we're really excited about that because there's not often the opportunity to build such a large recreational space as we will have in this community. So, but thanks for those comments.
And I'll add a little bit about Matchett Park. Again, as the PRAB liaison, we actually just had a tour of the progress so far at our PRAB meeting last Thursday. One thing that you can do before you leave is connect you with Randy Coleman, and he can get your information and connect you directly with you or connect you to Ken Strubenow, our Parks Director. And we can provide anybody who's interested in seeing information about the Matchett Master Plan, what we've got done right now. One of the things that we've been really conscious about is making sure that we're setting ourselves up for future expansion out there. So we've stubbed out things that we can't afford to do now, such as lighting on the turf field. We've stubbed it out so that we're able to provide that as we get the funding and as we continue to develop out there. There's certainly a wish list that we have for the Matchett property. In general, we've actually been able to do a good amount of some of the outdoor extras or wish list items because of the way that the project has been managed. So we're, I'll be providing an update at the next city council meeting from PRAB, and I'll try to see if I can get a list of those wish list items that we've been able to do. But that is something that's available. All of our planning documents are public documents when it comes to our master plan and everything. So if you're interested in knowing more about what the rec center is looking like, I think we're also not many months away from doing public tours as well.
All right, Cam, can you hand the mic to the lady in the pinkish colored jacket?
Thank you. My name is Karen Parker. I have some concerns about transparency related to the annexation and rezoning process. Our neighborhood recently went through a neighborhood meeting 7 months ago. We were treated very poorly, as if our voice did not matter in any way, shape, or form. They were just going through the motions to have the meeting and wanted to end it as quickly as possible. They did not want to hear about the safety concerns that we have in the neighborhood. They did not want to hear that they were popping in an MU1 zone in the middle of a sea of RL4 zoning. It's a very small plot of land that could have potential commercial applications to it. It was once part of the 29 road corridor, but that property was split, and now it has nothing at all to do with the 29 road corridor. Everything would be flowing through our neighborhood, and it's an unimproved street on one side as it is already, so it won't even be finished. And we're told we're not even allowed to talk to city council members. We've put together a petition of over 200 people in our surrounding neighborhoods. We brought it to the city clerk, and she said she could have it filed for public record, but only after the project starts moving through the planning department. And now that project is moving through the planning department, and we're being told that there's still no way to make that public record. The meeting notes that were taken by the developer were woefully incorrect and wrong. She did not include any of the things that we raised as concerns. And we've sent letter after letter, and we've had like 1 or 2 responses from city council members. So we just want to understand why our voices are not heard, why there isn't more transparency in the process. And Mr. Bennett, I love the idea of the Citizens Academy, because that's exactly what our neighborhood needed right out of the gates, to educate us about the comprehensive plan, what was going on. We've had to run around trying to figure out what on earth is even going on, how they decided on this whole MU1 thing in the first place. I mean, we've paid for attorneys to help us understand stuff that the city could have easily helped us understand. And the planning department employee that spoke to us was beyond rude, beyond, it riled up our entire neighborhood, just the way she treated us. So I would love to understand what could be done to improve that process going forward and how our voices can be heard about concerns we have with that development. Thank you.
Can I jump in really quickly, just on behalf of council, to warn council, I'm going to ask staff to take this, and specifically our city attorney, our interim city attorney, to explain some of this. And I'm jumping in only because there are legal considerations that the council has to be careful of in our quasi-judicial role. And since this is something that is moving through the process, council has to be very careful not to receive any testimony this evening, take any information, opine. We can potentially speak broadly to the process, but I think it is at this stage more appropriate for staff to explain the legalities around that process and what we're doing in our quasi-judicial role as opposed to when you see us in our policy-making role, which is it's a very different lane that we're in when we have those hats on.
And I appreciate the question. I'm going to ask our community development director to talk a little bit about the annexation process and state statute related to that process, and then maybe our interim city attorney can talk beyond that about the quasi-judicial nature and ex parte communication to hopefully shed some light on maybe some of the components that you brought up related to the process. So Tamara, if you don't mind starting.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I'm actually going to go off his script for a minute. And first of all, say I'm sorry to hear that's your experience. And I mean that with all earnesty. A couple of things that may be helpful in kind of understanding kind of the situation at hand. Maybe firstly is that those neighborhood meetings are really an opportunity for the proponent of the project, in this case the developer, to help walk that neighborhood through what the proposal is. They're not always refined or probably as thorough as one might hope, and I understand that it's not the first time that we've heard that has been maybe less than sufficient in content, or that neighbors feel like they haven't heard or fully understand the proposal. So you're not alone in that. What I think we can offer is that the city is really here not as a proponent or an advocate of a particular development project, but really there to help both the applicant, in this case the proponent, understand kind of their rights, the process that they must move through in order that if they want to potentially develop that site, but also the neighbors like yourself to really understand what that process is and the expectations around that. So feel free to grab me after this, and happy to walk you through as well as talk through maybe what we can do to help support your guys' broader understanding of that proposal. Now to the direction that Mike gave me. Just talk a little bit about annexation. We actually, as the City of Grand Junction, do annexation here very differently than most communities in the state of Colorado. We actually have a long-standing agreement with Mesa County that if there's any what we call annexable development, which is really any significant development on a piece of property, they're actually required through that agreement to annex first to the City of Grand Junction. So a developer oftentimes doesn't have a choice, frankly. If they want to make a proposal for development, they first have to come through the annexation process. And then with that, the actual state statute requires that within 90 days, the city zone that piece of property. In the city, we have what we call a comprehensive plan. Sounds like you've had a quick touch on the comprehensive plan. But what that does is, from our policymakers' perspective, back in 2020, really designated with a fairly broad brush the types of land uses that the community would generally support or think are appropriate in certain areas of our city. That's called our land use designation. And then those translate and kind of connect to certain zone districts that are available for a developer to seek. In this case, it sounds like it was the MU zone district, which affords a really broad array of different uses, and as you said correctly, commercial being one of them. But we really leave it to the developer or the proposal or proponent to choose what they think is most appropriate. What comes next is really a city staff evaluation of whether we think that's a designation that staff can professionally support, again looking at that comprehensive plan for guidance, but ultimately, as also indicated, that goes to our planning commission here, which is a review and referral body. They provide a recommendation for city council with regard to the zoning, and then certainly city council here, these members amongst you tonight, make the decision on whether that zoning is or is not appropriate for that piece piece of property. So that hopefully helps maybe set a little bit of the stage and kind of the steps and progressions for that project in particular, but in general for how the city both annexes and zones property as it comes into the city. And again, happy to talk with you afterwards on some specifics.
Sure. And it basically confirms that we really don't have much of a voice in it, and we can't talk to anybody until the very end of the process when the city council is voting versus upfront where something might be done differently based on a lot of input from the surrounding community. So it's very disappointing that that process is just a rubber stamp process.
Thank you. I will just note as a stat, I should have mentioned it either. We did receive the comments and the petition submitted, and that will get submitted with the application when it goes to City Council for their review.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. And so I'll basically talk a little bit about the quasi-judicial process. And it is a very unique process contained within city councils. It's called quasi-judicial, and the operative word in that is judicial. So when you think of judicial, you usually think of courts and judges. The reason why it's called quasi-judicial is because city council effectively operates as 7 judges, and they're adjudicating the rights of both sides. So the rights of the community and also the rights of the developer. And like any other judicial process where you're adjudicating the rights of 2 different people who might be opposed, there's a concept of fundamental fairness that has to come into play. And I'm sure you can imagine if you were in the middle of a court process and you found out that the judge that was hearing your case regularly had coffee with the person you were going up against in court. That would certainly cast a lot of shade on that process and would seem to be pretty unfair. And so whenever we have something that comes through the quasi-judicial process, we do have to make sure that council is not exposed to what's called ex parte communications, which is special communications outside of the process. So there are certain things that they can receive and send back. But when it comes to the merits of a lot of these different plans that are coming up through the process, the appropriate time to do that is when it comes to the hearing. And there's lots of avenues of communication to get to that hearing. You can submit things in writing. We have people that submit volumes of information to both community development and directly to the city clerk and directly to council. All that stuff gets put into the council packet for them to consider during the hearing. And then there's public comment during the hearing. Everybody gets their 3 minutes worth of say. Then council weighs all that, and then they make their determination based on the totality of the circumstances and the criteria by which they have to judge each project. But there is no limit to what you can submit in writing either. So that is one avenue to reach out to council. And then it has to go through the process.
Can I add one thing to kind of that discussion a little bit? Because I think it sounds like part of the concern was around the zoning decision. And I think that it's important to clarify that a zoning decision is also separate from a development plan. And so kind of the zoning talks about what can be done. But when we're considering a zoning decision, we actually are not supposed to think about kind of any plans for that land. It's supposed to be kind of that zoning decision in isolation.
We're not allowed to think about, we're not allowed to take into consideration what may or may not be the product that is chosen there. We are making those decisions solely based on the criteria of our local laws and our comprehensive plan.
We absolutely hear you. When you're talking about the frustration in that, 100%. As a resident, when I think about a development coming into my neighborhood or changes, or hey, I've watched the sunset out of my kitchen window for 30 years, and now I'm in an apartment complex, and my voice can't be heard on that. Absolutely hear that, valid frustration, but as Councilmember Wynn and staff just mentioned, we have those limits to what we can consider. One thing I would encourage you, and I think a lot of people don't know, when they are going to those neighborhood meetings and they may be objecting to a certain development, is there is a way that you can work better within that system if you know what the council can consider and specific evidence. that we can consider and frame your argument around that and specific to that. For instance, if you say, I don't think this necessarily complies with the comprehensive plan in these 3 areas, and the comprehensive plan is big. They may say, well, it fits over here, and you could make the argument, well, it doesn't fit over here. And that is something that council could consider. So I'm not telling you this, I'm not giving you legal advice, and I'm not telling you how to do this necessarily, but I'm encouraging you to engage in the process and think about, well, what can council consider, and how can we formulate our concerns that fall within the body of evidence that they can consider. So there are absolutely ways to do that, and it's hard because as just a citizen of the community, you wouldn't necessarily know that. So this is, again, this engagement was mentioned up here on the front. It's like there's those things that you just don't know, but you being here tonight is an opportunity for you to know that, and there are maybe other ways that we can engage to make sure that people know that through our community meetings and things like that.
Appreciate that.
If there's nothing else from council and staff on this topic, we'll move to another question, and we'll head to this side of the auditorium.
Evening, people. I appreciate you all being here tonight. I had a one-on-one with all these people over here, and then I did talk to Mike, Beverly, Matt, Sergeant Matt Gates, and Trent. My question, like it's always been, is the traffic goes way too loud. Drag racing, rolling coal, wheelies, you name it. Are we going to look at it a little differently? Or what we see is what we get? Thank you.
Also in my neighborhood, same thing.
She said he's not alone in his comment.
So all of the things you mentioned are illegal, and we enforce that. We wrote almost 10,000 tickets last year. We have a limited amount of resources, and there's probably over 100,000 people in the city every day. And so our officers, our traffic officers, they go out and they do enforce all of those things. And whenever they see it, they take action. We do enforce the rolling coal. That one's a little challenging because of the way the state has the legislation written around that violation. You have to have special training, you have to go to Denver for it, you have to recertify every year. So we do have people that are certified to do that, but there's only a couple of them. So we're working on getting more people certified to be able to enforce that. But we do have a couple that can do that, but they have to see it themselves and be there. It can't be from a third party, they actually have to see it. So some of those enforcement efforts that seem like they're simple just aren't that simple because of the way the statutes are written. But we do enforce that, and we do go look for those violations.
Yeah, I'd like to add a little something to that. One thing coming out of our strategic plan sessions with this current council was a real focus on public safety. And with that, our police, our fire, they're only able to do what their capacity allows. So because of that, we're trying to grow these departments. I believe we're at 5 officers a year over the next few years, so that we can kind of try to get these numbers up so that we do have a better range of enforcement across the valley. We're very fortunate to have an incredible police department here in town. They do a fantastic job across the whole valley. And I think it's our role to support them and give them the tools that they need to be able to answer some of your concerns and keep moving things in the right direction.
We'll move to another question over in the back. Yeah.
I've been asking this question for some time. I see in Facebook the recreation centers coming up, and I wanted to know why solar panels was not chosen for means of energy because that's a big place. It's going to be a big price ticket. Does anybody know why you didn't go with solar?
All right, sorry, thank you for the question. I was just double checking with, I know we go through a process when we have, for our facilities where we vet whether the payoff will work, and so we just added solar panels to City Hall just this last year. I'm just looking down the line to see if either our General Services or Parks and Recreation want to talk to the vetting for the Community Recreation Center itself. I know that went through prior to the construction.
Probably a question most suitable for Ken.
Yeah.
That's what I was working.
But I mean, I can actually answer, not specific to any RFP process or any specific, quotes or anything. We explored a number of energy efficiency things. We also looked at geothermal and having that be a part of the process, and the cost to install geothermal was prohibitive, beyond prohibitive for the recreation center. And the same was the case, it wasn't as prohibitive to do solar, but the ROI that came from that and whether or not the investment in installing it or installing the geothermal system would be recoverable within a reasonable amount of time was not borne out to be the case. It was something that we certainly looked at through that process. And because we're working with taxpayer money and we're bonding and we have a certain amount that we can actually borrow on behalf of the city, which was approved by voters at a very specific amount, we weren't able to include those either solar or geothermal or any number of other of those big ticket wish list items.
I would just say that, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I would just say the short answer is there was a cost-benefit analysis done prior to, and it did not turn out to be favorable in the length of time of the life of those solar panels for that particular project. What we need our Parks and Recreation Director, who was not able to be here, who would have the details of what those were that added up to that. I know I've had that discussion with him, and there were some very specific reasons. I'm just blanking on the top of my head, and it was prior to my time here, but we'd be happy to get your information and get back with you on those details. But it was vetted, and then just did not result in what we had hoped for, like we've added for other facilities.
Mike, and if I can, I'll just add one more thing on that. It's not, in that we didn't necessarily add it as it was being built. It doesn't mean that we won't in the future. I believe the design was specifically both from the electrical configuration, rooftop configuration allows for that expansion. Because generally, solar, based on what I've looked at, solar doesn't work without certain subsidies. For instance, we recently were able to add a section of covered parking at the airport that's solar covered, which was fantastic. But it worked because we had a really great opportunity with solar and worked with a local solar company with a subsidy that really made all that pencil. To a point that the panels itself were basically free. The cost was really in the structure there. So it's those things that, as our city manager pointed out, that cost-benefit analysis. So even if it's like not right now, there might absolutely be a time in the future where either the cost of panels come down or that there's some substantial subsidy that makes it pencil.
I have a second question, and I was wondering what you're doing for the unhoused people. How is that going, and what are the solutions you've come up with?
Yes, thank you for that question, and feel free, anybody, to join in. But there's a few things. So the city has traditionally taken an approach of, a couple of things. So we have one staff member that works within our small housing division who coordinates with a number of the nonprofits and is one of our first points of contact when we receive calls from the community related to the unhoused. Of course, we have an enforcement side that our police department typically takes care of. We have a long workshop on that just this last week, and I'm really proud of the dignity in which our police department works with the unhoused population, and is very mindful of trying to share resources, and when they have to enforce, let's say, for example, trespassing, they give notice and time so people can gather their belongings. On the service side, there's a lot of wonderful agencies, nonprofit agencies, mainly within the county, but within the city of Grand Junction, who we partner with. We partner through funding, for one. So we funded this year Homeward Bound, we funded the Joseph Center, we funded Catholic Outreach, and we funded, I'm forgetting one here, Hilltop as well, and at a significant amount, and we've traditionally had different levels of funding in the past, and then we coordinate with those groups. We have some wonderful people with mutual aid partners in the audience too, and all of these agencies provide different levels of different types of services, and there's a coalition within the community, actually a couple of them, and the city participates with those. But that is how we work with as a city, in partnerships and collaboration. We don't have necessarily the shelters that the city runs or maintains, nor the expertise to do so. So we partner with those nonprofits and other entities.
I'd like to know if you've thought about having a tent lot. I've seen this in other cities where they have a specific, big lot. They can bring their tents there, and there's some picnic tables, some porta potties, instead of this rampant wherever you go, and there's no structure, and there's a lot of damage done, and a lot of cleanup. And if there was a place where they could be contained with their tents. Have you thought about that?
So we are not interested in managing or owning or maintaining such an area, but we have contemplated that through zoning, and so we have created the opportunity within the city's zoning and land use code for if there were entities that wanted to go that route. That there is a means and a way for them to go through the process of getting that zone through a conditional use permit that then would go to the city council after some of the neighborhood meetings that would take place. So thinking through that, there is a way to that, but it's not something that the city has looked at owning or managing or operating ourselves.
So, I'm on the MCCUH Housing Stability Work Group, and we have looked at a lot of those types of interim housing. There's a lot of safety concerns, and you would have, so the problem is we come up with these ideas, and then we're looking for providers that would want to manage that, and there is very little interest. So we tried the same with, we vetted out some safe parking options, but that had been turned down by a previous council because for safety concerns, because you can't, and I'm sure Chief Smith could talk about this a little bit more, but you can't manage what's happening inside of an RV, and then there are people who have medical issues or overdose, and there's no way to manage what's happening inside of those, and then if you're managing that property, it becomes your liability. And so there's a lot of safety issues with that, but we looked at, any type of interim housing. I know city staff have gone and looked at different models in different cities to see if there's something that we could replicate here, and we haven't been able to find something that works. And I get a lot of emails where people are like, well, just use this vacant storefront or use this empty space that's been sitting here, this underutilized property. But the fire code makes it so it's almost impossible in a lot of circumstances for us to be able to have overnight stays in a lot of those properties. And so we have, I don't want it to sound like we haven't looked at any of this. The city staff and the housing division have gone and investigated lots of different options and come back and share that information, and we tried to vet them out. But the problem comes, and then we tried this past year to say, you know, if we have some creative options that come forward, that's what we did, a request for proposals through the city. And the ones that we got were our same current service providers looking to stabilize, not even increase services. So we just don't have the capacity to be able to expand out in these different ways. But we have been trying to have those conversations, and so we continue to have those conversations, and we're still looking at different things, but for the city to manage it doesn't make sense. You really have to partner with somebody who has that expertise and is able to work with that community, and so that's, as City Manager Bennett just shared, you know, that's really the role of the city in trying to help our nonprofit providers be able to expand capacity when possible.
Can I? You know, I've worked on the issue for a long time, and we are having success in small ways around here. On a very broad basis, we are doing a great job providing food and, you know, wraparound services, mental health counseling, but there are many other issues involved with the different level of homelessness. And we didn't talk about transportation, and that's a big one as well. And the city is working a lot with some other groups about transportation, including the bus service, Sunshine Taxi, and some other groups to get people around. We are having, you know, as I said, we're having success, but it's in small pieces. And, you know, a big block to have all the tents come out to is a very scary thing to imagine, as you can imagine, because of the management that would go into that and the public safety issues. So I think we have to break it down into smaller pieces, and we've had some conversations about that lately. It certainly helps to do it financially in smaller pieces. City can help a little bit. We've got some property, we've got some financial resources that we can help with, but the local providers are doing a great job, and they're working their butts off every day, by the way, you know, because it's a 24/7 issue. So I feel really good about, you know, the resources we have in place, but we got to take that next step to those shelter pieces and break the homeless community down to which shelter fits them best and help them get out of homelessness. So, you know, it's doable. A lot of people swinging at it, and help from the public and comments from the public really help a lot too, to keep the issue alive and show that the community supports work in that area. So thank you for bringing that up.
Any other comments from council?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we recognize our role as city council and our position. You know, we have to look at the broader view of our community and how it fits for everybody within Grand Junction. That's all of our citizens, all of our community members. The problem is Grand Junction's not in the economic position to be the leader in this area. So we have to learn from communities that are already tackling this issue and try to do what's working best in those communities. We've seen communities like Delta try to do an unsupervised camping area that ended pretty horrifically because of the drug use and violence that was taking place on that property. So it's really a two-pronged approach in so many ways, because it's not just money, it's not just the location, it's also having the right people to work with that population and to work with those people to really make that project successful. So as staff works on it, as council works on it, hopefully some solutions will come forward. But it's definitely something we're all very aware of.
If there's no other comments from council or staff, we'll move on to another question. We'll go down here in the black t-shirt.
So that the fire chief doesn't think he's escaped this evening. Could we please get an update on staffing and the new station out on the west side, northwest side? Also, actually, I have a question about the procedures and process for all of the utility contractors who tear up our streets, repairing them. It seems to me that the process is a bit weak and that we don't enforce maintaining them if they settle after the contractor is gone. Thank you.
We'll start with the question for Chief Scaris.
Sure. So, obviously you talked about Fire Station 7 up there on the far northwest side. As everybody knows, back in 2019, the community passed the public safety sales tax, which originally was forecasted to open Station 6, 7, and 8 for us. The revenue from that came in below. So we did build all the stations. We have Station 6 and 8 staffed. And obviously last year when went through the budget process, again, it was said earlier that the revenue just was not there to provide for the staffing needed for it. In order for us to open up the station, we need about 15 personnel, which is quite a bit of money. When it goes into it, it's give or take about $2 million. The intent, though, is to work with council and the manager to get that staffed in the next fiscal year starting in January.
Yes, and so in regards to the fiber installation that is ongoing throughout the community, we have two different fiber companies that are competing and trying to get in as fast as they can. I mean, literally, it's like a gold rush for them. The sooner they can get into a subdivision, and the other one will go to a different subdivision. And so, over the last 3 to 4 years, we've had literally hundreds of miles of trench come into that, and in order to, most of that is placed by directional boring, and in order to properly place the line, they need to what they call daylight each one of the utilities that fiber line is going to cross. And so every water service, sewer service, general town sewer services, that comes later, but other utilities that they have to cross, they pour a 6-inch hole in the asphalt or concrete and get down there in daylight those various utilities. So that leaves a lot of perforations in our street and sidewalk infrastructure. And so we do have inspection staff that works very closely with the contractor there. Right now, it's one contractor that's doing both installs. We have crews that are doing that, and so we have inspection services through my department, right-of-way inspection staff that works very closely with that. Sometimes, like I said, there are many miles that are under construction at any given time, and so sometimes citizen concerns are shared with us, and we follow up with the contractor. But our construction has been doing a really decent job with that. It was the installs throughout the community. Pretty rough when we first started up there in Spring Valley, and our contractors no longer there. They moved on to more construction, who's again most of the installs here in the valley. So if you are having concerns, we do have staff within my department that can follow up with the contractor on that. But they should have door hangers on everyone's door, contact information for that particular contractor. But if that's not the case, feel free to call our staff to get within engineering and transportation.
I want to do a a time check. We have about 15 minutes left for tonight's event, so that's probably 2 questions. We'll go over here in the multiple colored shirt.
Thank you. My name's Terry Ahern. I've lived in the Grand Valley, Grand Junction, and the Redlands for 26 years. And I'd like to make a few comments and one ask. I've been working with Elizabeth Fogarty and Michael Hart at Visit GJ, and I've had wonderful fun with the Adventure Pass with Grand Junction. And also that the whole department is not trying to turn this into the Mighty Five or turn this into Moab here in Grand Junction so that locals can only shop at 5 p.m. or midnight. We want to recreate responsibly, and I think they're doing a wonderful job with that. I also worked for the city of Fruita for a while, leading hikes for active adults and seniors, and wanted to get to know my community there better. So I took the first ever Fruita Academy, and it was wonderful, and I'm very excited to see it's coming here. And they did a little mini kind of get to know your city series. I'm a volunteer and an volunteer instructor for New Dimensions. And we had Get to Know Your City series. We had Get to Know Your City Manager, Get to Know the Fire Department, Get to Know the Engineering with Trent Prawl, Get to Know Grand Junction Parks and Rec, Get to Know our Human Resources. They were all wonderfully done, and New Dimensions participants love those. I'm also a trail host for the city of Grand Junction, and have done that since 2019, works out of Park and Rec. I love when Randy Coleman gets to come to our meetings and gives us updates on what's going on with the Colorado Riverfront Trail, construction projects on sidewalks, etc. We have a wonderful forestry department. I also have helped New Dimensions get special rec permits for our New Dimensions hikes so that we're doing the right thing when we're on the riverfront trails or in Kindred Reserve. And right now, the City of Grand Junction Trail Host Program, we're an extra set of eyes and ears for the police department. We get a background check, which the city pays for. And we just are out there walking or biking. We're looking for things that are unusual or different. It might be an unhoused population. It might be dogs off leash. We don't enforce things. We just educate. We do call non-emergency dispatch if we need to now and again. And we used to have a really robust program with that. City of Fruita still does. We've had up to 20 people on that for City of Grand Junction Trail Host. We're down to 3 people right now. All you have to do is get out there and be on the trails anyway, and watch for things that are unusual or might need to be reported. I encourage anybody in this room who walks or bikes on a Grand Junction riverfront trail to please think about that opportunity. You're out there anyway. Be an extra set of eyes and ears for our police department and our Parks and Rec department. Thank you for all of you guys do for us.
Thank you. I'll actually take 2 more questions because we have 2 more hands raised, and so we'll try to make them quick so we can fit them both in.
Good evening. I have learned so much. Thank you for all of you being here, taking the time to be here. I think a lot of the times when we are angry or really emotional is because we have limited knowledge, and so I really, really appreciate all of you being up here and being willing to be so patient and kind and explain all the processes and all the stuff, so thank you. So I don't see Housing Division up there. As you'll know, we work very closely with Ashley and Sherry. So I know that the Prop 123 milestone was just reached, and so I would just love for the audience to know more about what that is, because I know that that has been a baby for multiple years now, and I think it takes a lot of time and effort to get that infrastructure and to get that housing built, and a lot of folks are very impatient, and you all have done an incredible job with Prop 123, so I just want to create space for you all to share about that's very exciting for our community.
Great, thank you. It is a great milestone, and I'll ask our Community Development Director, Tamara Allen, to speak to that. Thanks.
Thanks. I love the props on the feel-good information, so happy to share. I was actually going to take an opportunity to segue from the earlier question about the unhoused. I think one of the things the city has really invested in is not just working with our service providers and our nonprofits on unhoused related issues, but really looking upstream too about keeping people housed and getting people into housing. With regard specifically to Proposition 123, this was state legislation passed a couple of years ago, and the essence is that communities had to commit to a 3% baseline year over year for 3 years and an increase in their affordable housing stock. That could be done through both production and or preservation. And the communities also had to commit to what we call fast tracking or expedited review of qualified affordable housing projects. Really, thanks to the leadership of the City Council, the city committed to that 3 years ago, and it is the first city, not town, but first city in the state of Colorado to achieve that Proposition 123 compliance. So we're very proud of that. What that means is that we've helped preserve 374 units of affordable housing to this community. Of that, 140 of those units are actually new construction and new units. So really excited. The city has contributed almost $12 million to that effort. The city does not build housing, but really has worked to help leverage dollars for specific projects, both of those being nonprofit as well as quasi-governmental through our housing authority here, as well as for-profit developers that have made those strides in actually bringing new units to this community, which is really substantial. The Housing Authority is one of our partners in that space. They help deliver 69% of the units, almost 70%, and a number of those were actually preservation, which is really important too to think about, not just creating new spaces, but also ensuring that existing homes and dwelling units remain habitable, safe, secure, and really dignified for the community and residents that need those. So thank you for that opportunity to share a little bit. Proposition 123 actually has brought over $30 million to the Mesa County area in investing in housing. So really excited about that opportunity. Thank you.
Stephanie, I would say thank you for that opportunity, the way you phrased that question, give us some space to talk about that. And it is important. And we are getting some things done. I think one of the projects we've been working on, I assume it's public, and if it's not, it's about to be. I heard Tamara talk today about a project we've been working on for a long time with the departments of Little Orange and Mesa. It's a great project. In particular, and there was some solar comment earlier, that it's designed to really not just be affordable housing, but really include the utility aspects, very tight when it's built, and have a solar component to really try to control costs for those residents long term. So Grand Junction is leaning into that, and not just the Prop 123 space, but also to be talking about that supply side solution, right? To say all the above. How can we bring more supply online? And I know we're talking about housing in a general way, and workforce housing is something we talk about a lot, and trying to bring down that median house price. But I know specifically mutually partners working in that area around unhoused. As Sister Karen got outreach was fond of saying, we often hear her say it takes homes to make houses. And that is a part of that equation. As we're bringing more of those types of units online, it addresses that in a way. So whether we're talking about some type of stopgap, right, and the challenges that we face with camping, that's one part of it. But to actually say, how can we help people transition into something better? And that's, I'm excited that this council's done something on that and continues to.
I just want to add, today was actually a very special day, which Tamara did not mention, but because we were the first city to reach the Prop 123 goal, Governor Polis actually did come out today, and we were able to take him on a tour of the Current, which is the Grand Junction Housing Authority's project, and I believe it's 54 units, and so it was great to be able to take him through and see where those dollars have been going. it's a really important milestone. A lot of cities were not able to make it. There was legislation just recently passed to make it a bit easier for cities to reach their numbers, but we were already rolling down that track, so it's really exciting, and we should take a minute to really appreciate that.
And I would just add that not only have we met that commitment with a lot of work between our staff and our partners, this also enables various groups, whether they're nonprofits or private developers, to actually, hopefully, if there's future funding with Senate Bill 123 funding, to be able to actually access that. So it's not just money for the city to access, but multiple partners to have opportunity to go after that. And just because we met the count doesn't mean it's over. That's just the start. We, in just first phases of a number of projects, or the project itself, we're over 472 units in the works right now. And then there's about half of those projects have secondary phases as well. So there's a lot in the works. These types of projects take a long time because they have to find these very creative capital stacks to be able to subsidize that rent or subsidize that cost at a rate that is affordable for those based on their area median income to afford the housing. So it's a great milestone, but it's just the start of a lot of work that will continue, and many more units that are coming on board as well.
Well, we are actually at time, so I'd like to end tonight maybe with a few closing words from council, if anybody wants to say anything before we leave tonight.
I just wanted to thank everyone for making time on a Monday night to come out and to interact with us and ask us questions. And if you had a question that you didn't get answered, feel free to email it over, and one of the many people on the stage will be able to answer it. And I just appreciate everybody coming out on a very busy time.
Thank you all for coming. We really do appreciate it. Stay engaged. There will be many more opportunities to meet with council or staff in the coming